Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, with a cup of tea. And I'm here on this video to talk for one last time for now about Jay Slater. So, this is Jay. I'm sure you all know, those of you who've been following my channel, we know that this round about this time last year, last summer, Jay was on holiday, wasn't he, in Tenerife, and various things happened. Mainly, Jay being having a great time, 3 days at a festival. Decided for some unknown reason that I think we still don't really know with any clarity, to go back to an Airbnb right up in the mountains in Tenerife, in Masca, with a couple of guys that he didn't know very well. He got there, Jay really, it seems like, in my opinion anyway, this is how it feels, this is what the official narrative is. People have their own ideas about what might have happened or not happened. But he decided he wanted to go back to his apartment and he set off on oops, sorry, I think my dog's choking. Hopefully not. He set off on a very fateful trip home, hiking back to where he was staying. He totally misjudged the terrain that he was walking through, and he very sadly fell into a ravine and died. And of course, it took quite a long time to find his body. The police the Guardia Civil were looking for him for quite a long time. I think it was a month. And of course, during this time, then a million conspiracy theories came out, and various things. I'm not going to go into all the things. You know, if you watch my channel regularly, you'll know what I think. I think that Jay had an accident. I think it was an accidental death. I agree with the findings by the coroner for once. It's not a coroner that I like, and I didn't agree with the findings from the Nicola Bulley case. But in this case, I agree. I do think that Jay had an accident. But of course, less clear are the murky sort of surroundings of why he was there, why his friends didn't maybe, how can I put it? Because I don't want to make them feel bad, because, at the end of the day, I do think it was an accident. But I do think it was a preventable accident. I do think his friends let him down. And when Jay was worried, saying to them that he didn't know where he was, he only had 1% of battery on his phone, he had no water, he was scared. That's when they should have said to him. But I mean, this is the benefit of hindsight, and also the benefit of the fact I'm a lot older, and I'm not high as a kite on drugs, funnily enough, as we speak. The sensible thing to do would have been to say to Jay, stay where you are, don't move. We'll phone the police. They'll send someone out to find you. He was completely lost in a very treacherous place. And, he would have been better off staying where he was and waiting for the police to find him, the mountain police to find him. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. He tried to find his way back to where he'd come from, and he slipped in, he fell into the ravine, hopefully died instantly. It's horrible to think they may have been laying there alive for a little while. I hope to God that it just didn't know anything. And he was not found for a month. So, of course, his family went out to Tenerife. They were looking for him. His dad was looking for him, his brother. His mum has suffered an absolute onslaught of social media, vile hatred, etc., mainly concentrated around the GoFundMe. And also, though, I think, people phoning up and saying that they'd kidnapped him and demanding ransoms, and it's just horrible. So there will be a documentary coming out soon about this case, won't they, that's been encouraged by the family, participated in by the family. And that really, until that comes out, I won't be talking about Jay Slater anymore. I just wanted to tell you that. I just wonder, what are all those sort of conspiracy theories, social media people out there who just love, stirring the pot. What are they going to talk about now? They'll be looking out for watch out for the next thing. They'll be looking for the next, load of rubbish to talk. So, they can't talk about Jane anymore. They'll string it out a little bit longer, I'm sure. But as far as I'm concerned, I've got one thing that I want to tell you about today, because I know a lot of my followers have been very interested in this case. Jay, as his mum said at the inquest, he did touch the hearts of a lot of people. And that's the positive side of it, isn't it? And people hoped and prayed that Jay would be okay. Most people are nice and hoped for a good outcome. But of course, it wasn't to be. And I'm going to after this, but I just want to tell you about this because I know the people, those of you that my followers that have been following Jay's case will be interested in this, which is his friend Brandon Hodgson, who did not appear at the inquest, which is so sketchy, isn't it? It didn't appear at the inquest. He didn't want to participate in the inquest. But what has been released is the statement that he made to the Guardia Civil. So I'm going to read that out to you basically, and then that's it. I don't think Brandon murdered him, but I think Brandon is, it's the whole lifestyle that these people live. That's what's made this case difficult as well. The fact that, most of them are, at the end of the day, drug users, etc. And, they didn't, I don't think, they're young people, they don't take things so seriously. I don't know. I'm not criticizing them. I'm not, I don't know how it's going to affect them in a future time when they're a bit more mature in their heads, etc. But that whole environment of, in Tenerife, you feel that there's a lot of drugs going on, and they just didn't remember half the time what really happened. They didn't take it. I don't think Brandon took it seriously. How much danger Jay was in when he was so lost up there in the mountains. It just like he's probably, having a good time himself, or coming down from having a good time, or whatever. So yeah, I'm not criticizing him in the sense that I think he did anything to Jay, but I do think Jay's friends in general did let him down because he didn't take it all seriously. And he should have been told to stay where he is, phone the police. There's probably a couple of reasons why they didn't want to get involved with the police because of their lifestyles, also the language barrier in a foreign country. There's probably a mixture of all that, the reasons, but of course that would have been that could have been a different scenario, couldn't it? But it wasn't to be. So yeah, after this I will be letting Jay rest in peace until the documentary comes out, because I'd like to talk about that, because that is being endorsed by the family, so it's real, it's not conspiracy theories, etc. It's as far as the family know what really happened, and I will be reporting on that. So Brandon, who did not attend the inquest, had no interest in participating in the inquest. I mean, that's strange in itself, isn't it? Because if your friend dies, you'd want to help, surely. You'd want to help, you'd want to attend the inquest, you'd want to give whatever insight you could. You'd certainly want to help his family try and understand what happened to Jay. Because as I've said many times, they're the ones that have to live with this day in, day out. And the fact that Jay's not with them anymore doesn't affect other people's lives. How dare these horrible social media people and TikTokers, the bad ones, who give us all a bad name, how dare they go on there and talk about Jay as if they think they know him, as if, they've got some right to him or whatever. He is not their son, their brother. How dare they? How dare they? Gosh, a lot of karma has been invited, I think, through this case. So the investigation force. So this is a Yahoo News, but it's all over a lot of a lot of mainstream media now. And let's just have a bit of the background of the inquest. So the inquest just happened last week. I did report on it on my channel. You can find the video on there. So the inquest into the death of Jay Slater heard from several witnesses, bar two friends who had been with him on the night before he disappeared. So the two that didn't attend, of course, was Brandon Hodgson and Stephen Rockas. They failed to respond to extensive attempts by police and the coroner's office to locate them and compel them to give evidence. Now, of course, we found out that Stephen Rockas, Rocky, he's got a warrant out for his arrest for other things. That's probably why he hasn't appeared. I'm not sure why Brandon didn't want to get involved. So during the inquest, the court heard of the efforts to find Brandon. On April the 10th, the coroner's office tried ringing Brandon, left a voicemail. They also sent an email and a text message, but he did not respond. On April the 23rd, the coroner's office tried to call Brandon again. There was no answer and a second voicemail was left. The office then spoke to Brandon's mum, Natalie, who said her son had been receiving threats online and was out of the country. I mean, he probably has been receiving threats. I mean, this case has, sort of whipped up so much frenzy, hasn't it? And maybe that's true. Maybe that was why he's out the country. People say he lives in Tenerife. I don't know, because I don't know Brandon. All I do know is I'm surprised that a friend of Jay, a so-called friend of Jay, would not want to participate in the inquest if they had nothing to hide. So I think with Rocky, I think he has got something to hide, as I said, because he's already got a warrant out for his arrest for other things. You can understand maybe a little bit about why he doesn't want to be caught. But what's Brandon's reason? Anyway, 2 days later, a witness summons was sent to Lancashire Police for them to serve it to Brandon at his home address in Lancashire. On May the 6th, police said they had attempted to serve the witness summons in person, but Brandon was not at his home address. On May the 7th, the coroner's office asked another police officer to go and attempt to serve the summons. Again, no answer at his address. And when the coroner's office tried to call both Brandon and his mum, Natalie, on May the 24th, there was no answer. On June the 4th, a search by police found an email address for Natalie, and an email was sent, but there was no response. Again, this is his mum, and, at the end of the day, I know mums stick up for their sons, but you think she would encourage him, really, to attend. But anyway, there you go. They've got their own reasons. They've got to pay for it themselves in karma-wise, and also, they've got to account for it themselves, haven't they? On June the 11th, a letter was provided for Jay's mum, Debbie, to hand to Brandon if she managed to find him during a visit to Tenerife. She was not able to do so. Gosh. The next day, police hand-delivered a letter to Brandon's mum, Natalie. The letter was handed to Natalie in person, as was evidenced on the officer's body cam footage. Brandon, who was also from Lancashire, returned home after his holiday in Tenerife and gave an interview to Spanish police via a video link. Brandon was sat next to his mum, Natalie Hodgson, during the interview. I mean, it's interesting, really, isn't it? They think they're badasses, these boys, but they always want to be with their mum. I noticed that Brad attended the trial with his mum. You're not so badass, really, that you don't want your mum there. Not that I'm saying anything's wrong with that, because they're only young boys. I think this is at the heart of it. They're young lads. They don't take things seriously. I think there'll come a time later on in life where they'll think about this a lot more. That's what I think anyway. I just, we know from our own experience, when you're young, you don't take things so seriously. I'm sure they cared that Jay had died, but it's not. But later they get maybe going to think about it a bit more, I would imagine. But that's at the end of the day, that's their accountability, isn't it? It's not for me to judge them about what they did, what they didn't do. I do feel that they let Jay down a little bit, but then who knows if that would have been me in that circumstance? Because they were just, uh, in my opinion, and this is only my opinion. I know there's lots of people out there think there's more to this case, but I don't. And unless someone can actually come up with evidence, some actual evidence, that's never going. My mind is not going to change on that. But yeah, just daft things that young people do. If Jay would have been older and wiser, he wouldn't have tried to walk across that terrain. After spent 3 days of not sleeping and taken all those different drugs and things, hadn't he? So he wasn't in a fit state to walk, down the Oxford Road in Manchester, never mind to walk across that terrain. So this is the interview transcript. So apparently, and this is, as I say, all over a lot of mainstream media. I'm just reading it out so that you're informed of it and we can comment on it. The investigation force asked Brandon to describe how the last call he had with Jay Slater went. Brandon said he didn't remember if he made the call or if Jay made the call. Again, they're not going to remember all the details because at the end of the day, they were off their faces. I do think that's relevant. The said call took place on the same day as his disappearance. He believes it was around 8:30 on that day and it was a video call. In the video call, Jay told him he was in the middle of nowhere and he showed him the area where he was and all you could see were mountains. He's gone off and thought he could get down to the sea and to his apartment and he couldn't. He was lost. The officers asked Brandon if when Jay showed him the area he was lost in, if he could see any road or path nearby or any rocky area or vegetation, and Brandon stated no. He wasn't on any road, he was in the mountains and he couldn't see any road nearby. The officers asked Brandon if in this video call Jay was on his own, and he said yes, he was. He was also asked to describe how his friend Jay was and whether he was hurt or in distress. He stated he was not frightened. So remember, he did get frightened later on, didn't he, when he spoke to Lucy? He was laughing and joking and he told him he was leaving the road, but without giving any reasons as to why he had left the road. The whole time he was laughing and joking. He, Brandon, believed that he was returning to the house. He thought his friend was out of his mind. He doesn't know how to explain it. He believes his friend was going down the mountain, i.e. descending the mountain. He doesn't know what there was in the direction in which he was going, but he got the feeling that Jay was going down the mountain. But at no point did he tell him where he was heading or what he intended to do going down that way. So, I think you've got to, presuming that what he's saying is true, and I know people perhaps will say that what he's saying is not true, but if we presume it was true, if your friend phoned you up and he was lost in the mountains, that's what the first thing I would say is just don't move anymore. Stay where you are, because either I'll come and get you or we'd phone the police, get the mountain rescue out. Because when someone's like high as a kite roaming through the mountains like that, it's not going to come to a good end, is it? So he got the feeling that Jay was going down the mountain, but at no point did he tell him where he was heading or what he intended to do going down that way. The investigating force asked him again to explain what he meant when he said that Jay was out of his mind. Brandon stated he doesn't know how to explain it, but it was the way that in which Jay was looking at him, like he wasn't himself. That night when they were at Papagayo nightclub, Jay couldn't stay standing up. So he had taken, now there was a lot of things in his system, weren't they, according to the forensic report. After he was asked if Jay had at any point mentioned to him if he had any problems or was afraid about anything, or if anyone was following him, Brandon stated no. As he had already mentioned, at this point he was joking and laughing. Brandon then added that the last time he saw Jay, he was outside Tramp's bar. Following this, he was asked how long the video call was. He stated that it had lasted approximately 7 or 8 minutes and it had been made through the Snapchat app. He was also asked if, in addition to the video call, he made a voice call before or after the video call, and he stated only via Snapchat. When asked if he was sure about this, he stated that they spoke on more than one occasion, and he was the first one to speak to Jay. He received the first call at 7:30 a.m. In that first call at 7:30, Jay was sitting and smoking a cigarette. He was sitting covered in a blanket. He told him he was with 2 men and that he had stayed in the mountains in a house belonging to these 2 men, and he saw he was fine, according to him. With regards to this subject, Brandon was asked if he knew these 2 men with whom Jay had stayed in the mountain. He stated he saw them, but they weren't his friends. He knew them because he had seen them in Tenerife. It's a small island. They proceeded to ask if he was the one who introduced those 2 men to the rest of the group, as everyone says. He stated that he lived in the same place where these 2 people went to drink. His friend Lewis is the one who knew them, but he is no longer friends with Lewis. He believes he now lives in the United Kingdom. He can't give any more information. So in Tenerife, everyone apparently goes to drink in the Las Veronicas area, and they all know each other from there. He cannot specify specific bars. They all know each other from that area of Las Veronicas. The investigating force again brought up the subject of the calls between Jay and Brandon. He was asked if the first call at 7:30 was when Jay was sat down on the steps outside the house smoking a cigarette, and if the second would be when he was lost in the mountains. He stated yes, the second one was at approximately 8:30. Brandon was asked what he did or who did he call after ending the call with Jay. He said he called Lucy just after ending the call with Jay, and Brandon told Lucy she needed to talk to Jay. She needs to call him because Jay is stuck in the mountains. He wasn't too worried about Jay, but Lucy is more sensible, more human, and he asked her to and he called her to solve the problem. He didn't know what to do, and he called her, given that she is more sensible and intelligent. Jay is mentally very childlike. I mean, it seems that way, doesn't it? Lucy more mature for her age, and that's why he called her. Because don't forget, if we believe what they have to say, Lucy said earlier in the evening, Jay kept going to places, and then when she'd go there, she couldn't find him. Jay was... probably not only because he was immature, maybe, but I mean, he was only 19 after all. But also, he'd taken all those things. He'd had all those different, ketamine and alcohol and those balloon things and cocaine. I mean, what a mixture. So he's not going to be sensible, is he? Even if he was normally sensible, he's not going to be sensible at that point. So on this note, he was asked if Lucy said what she was going to do. He stated that he fell asleep and he didn't speak with her after. So, the thing is, he's not thought about it again. He's just gone asleep, hasn't he? He's probably out off his face as well. He knows that Lucy called Jay, he fell asleep, and then later when he spoke with Lucy, she was already crying. given that she hadn't found Jay. After he tried to get in contact with Jay again, but his phone already seemed to be cut off, Lucy commented that his phone had died and that she did not know what to do. Ring the police. Should have rang the police right in the beginning, but anyway. On behalf of the officers, he was asked again if the last time he saw Jay was something. He was outside Tramp's bar. He stated something in front of said bar and he saw Jay outside said establishment. Illegible. Don't know why those are all illegible. He didn't enter the bar. He only passed in front. He was asked if he knew anything in relation to the theft of a watch. Brandon stated he had heard something about it, but it was what people were saying. He wasn't able to provide more information about this. So another thing that I thought, I thought he'd said something about the watch or the knives or whatever. And maybe that's another reason he didn't want to appear, because he knew, he'd spoken a load of crap to Mark Williams Twonk. And maybe didn't want to get involved because he knew he'd just said all the wrong thing. Just maybe did Mark Williams Twonk pay him, for that information that supposedly he'd given him? We've never seen a photo of the knives and that, so not a genuine, that we know is genuine. The thing is, a lot of people question whether the photos of Jay at the Airbnb were really Jay. But then why, it is easy to manufacture photos, I suppose, and stuff. And you couldn't see Jay's face, so it may not have been Jay. But then why are people so ready to believe that the photo of the knives that I've never seen, but I don't, people say they've seen, how do they know that was Jay? It's just, I think the fact that Brandon didn't want to turn up at the inquest or even do a video link says that he's lying about something somewhere along the line. But we don't know what that is. What is the truth and what is the lies? Is he embarrassed that it didn't help Jay more? Is he embarrassed because he sort of encouraged this rumor about the watches? Just don't know. So he was asked if in the video call he had with Jay, he was wearing some sunglasses. He said, yes, they were black sunglasses. He doesn't know if they were his or Bradley's, given that his were also black. And to end the call, he was asked if he had made a statement with the police of his country. He stated no one had got in touch with him. He was also informed that his brother would need to be contacted and was asked if he could provide a contact number. He informed them that his brother had been on holiday on the island and he would provide a phone number, but he had to contact his mother first. And with regard to the deposit for the property, Brandon said that a friend arranged this but did not want to give his friend's name. So he is as sketchy as anything, isn't he? He is definitely a suspicious character for whatever reason. Why is it going on to a completely different story? He's sketchy for lots of different reasons. Seems obvious that not everything he's said is the truth. But that doesn't mean he's a murderer, does it? So, I don't believe that it could be proved that there was foul play. So it can't be proved that there was foul play. I do think, in my opinion, accidental death is what happened. That perhaps would have been better that the verdict would have been left open, maybe, just in case anything else ever came up or out of it. I know basically from all my followers and from the poll that I did when I was going through the inquest, overwhelmingly people are not happy with that final verdict. But what about Debbie? Now we may have to, and Warren, of course, and Zach. We may have to wait till we'll probably have to wait till the documentary comes out to see what her genuine thoughts are on the whole thing, on the verdict, etc. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring that to you. I end my coverage there of Jay Slater unless something new comes out. And of course, I will be talking about the documentary when that finally comes out. But, I'm going to leave Jay to rest in peace. That poor lad, it's a very sad story of someone, just starting threshold of his life. Had a difficult early teenage years. Gone the wrong way and seemed to be doing well and progressing, and now for whatever he got involved with. I mean, at the end of the day, at the heart of this, whether it was accident or whatever, the heart of this is getting into that whole environment that's just too much alcohol, too many drugs, drug fueled, not being irresponsible. Not teenagers think they're invincible, don't they, just in general. And there's a lesson there. Now we're in the summer again, talk to if you're not a young person yourself, talk to your young people. They just make sure they should not leave their friends for a start. Don't leave your friends. And if you ever found that a friend was in that sort of situation, you need to be responsible for your friends. I know it's hard when they're partying and stuff, but it's and to be honest, not only young people that do it, is it? There's every year. I mean, we notice it more now, probably because of the Jay Slater case and other cases similar. How many cases have we seen, of young people going off? Not even young people on stag nights, hen do's, too much alcohol, drugs, and sort of unfamiliar surroundings don't mix, do they? There's always a potential for a tragedy, be it in a swimming pool, in the sea. There's been people that have fallen off cliffs because they didn't realise there was a drop there. What was it? There was one guy, didn't he jump over a wall and didn't realise it was a sheer drop on the other end of the wall. There's so many, sort of puts you off going away, doesn't it? There's not only away, of course, things can happen to you at home as well. You've always got to try and keep your head screwed on, at least up to a point. And a combination like that of all those different drugs and alcohol and 3 days no sleep, etc. It's a lethal combination, isn't it? And there's and I've done it when I was young, and I'm sure you have. I've been on 18 to 30 holidays and seen how people behave. I've behaved irresponsibly myself. I don't know if you can change your young people in your family. All you can do is tell them the pitfalls, and just what to be careful of. And then you really just need to hope and pray that it doesn't happen to your loved ones. It happened to Jay. And as Debbie said, Jay was a person. He didn't deserve to be treated, all the horrible stories that came out and this, that, and the other. He was a person. Might have been irresponsible. Most 19-year-olds are. But he was a person, and he's left a family behind who will miss him now every day for the rest of his life, of their lives, because he's not going to fulfill his potential, is he? So very sad. But yeah, I'm sure I'll be talking about Jay again when the documentary comes out, etc. But until then, I think I'm just going to, rest in peace. I just hope he's resting easy, I just hope he's dancing up in the sky, really. That's what I hope. Because he did seem to enjoy himself, that's for sure, but he was off his face, of course. But I'm going to just play out now, just with that. I've got these couple of little videos of him dancing, enjoying himself. That's how I like to imagine Jay, up in the sky, in heaven, having a great time in a big energy festival. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about Jay. I'll see you really soon in the next video, of course. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, because if there is any new news that comes out about this case, or of course about any other case that we're covering, I will, be on to talk about it. But in the meantime, Jay, I really do hope you're dancing in heaven. see you really soon in the next video, and until then, may your God go with you.